I still remember the way Eli used to look at me like everything I said was the funniest thing in the world. It didn't matter if I was rambling about a coworker or complaining about a coffee order gone wrong. He'd smirk, that stupid little grin tugging at the corner of his lips, and say something like, "You're cute when you're dramatic." And I'd roll my eyes, pretend to be annoyed, but secretly I loved it. I loved the way he made even the dullest moments feel alive, how he'd turn a grocery run into a dance in aisle 6, or how he'd whisper dumb jokes during movies just to make me laugh. We weren't perfect, but we were us. Loud, playful, borderline childish sometimes, sure, but it worked. Back then, our love was like a sparkler, bright, messy, fleeting in little bursts. He'd text me memes during meetings, steal my hoodies, bite my shoulder when I ignored him for too long. And even though I'd pretend to hate it, those were the moments that felt like home. But I started to change before he did. Somewhere along the line, I got tired. Work got harder. Friends got married, moved on, started posting grown-up things online, houses, careers, kids. I started wondering if maybe we were still living like teenagers while the rest of the world was growing up. And then, one night, it happened. We were at dinner, celebrating his promotion. He made a stupid joke, something about me being jealous of his new boss because she complimented his tie, and everyone laughed. Everyone except me. When we got home, I was quiet. He followed me into the kitchen, still smiling, trying to lighten the mood. "Come on, babe. It was a joke." I cut him off. "Not everything has to be a joke, Eli. You're not a kid anymore. Can you just grow up a little?" The look on his face, God, I wish I could forget it. His grin faded like someone had flipped a switch. The air felt heavy all of a sudden, like I'd said something that reached deeper than I meant it to. He didn't argue. Didn't snap back. He just nodded once and said, "Okay." That was it. No fight. No shouting. Just that single word that somehow felt like a door closing. I thought it was just another moment we'd laugh about later. I didn't know it was the start of the quiet. At first, I didn't notice the change. Or maybe I did, and I just didn't want to admit it. Eli was still kind, polite, attentive, even thoughtful in that quiet way of his. But something in him had dimmed. He still called me beautiful, but not the way he used to. No playful teasing, no exaggerated grins. Just a soft, almost mechanical, "You look nice." He still touched me, but his hands didn't linger like they used to. No spontaneous hugs, no sneaky kisses on the back of my neck when I cooked. It was like he'd taken all that boyish, reckless affection and packed it neatly away somewhere I couldn't reach. I told myself it was fine. This was what I wanted, right? A man who could be serious, grounded, grown up. I told myself it was a phase, that the excitement of the new job, the stress, maybe that's what made him quieter. But then came the small moments. The ones that told me something fundamental had shifted. We used to flirt over texts all the time, inside jokes, random "miss you," and sometimes completely unserious debates about whether pineapples belonged on pizza. Now, my phone stayed silent most of the day. When I texted him something funny, he'd reply with a simple LOL. That was it. I remember standing in the shower one night, replaying our conversation in my head, realizing how empty it had sounded. We used to talk like we couldn't stop. Now it felt like we were performing some quiet ritual called keeping in touch. One night, I tried to reignite that spark. We were watching a movie, one of those cheesy romantic comedies we used to love mocking together. I leaned my head on his shoulder and said softly, "Remember when we used to make fun of these scenes?" He smiled, barely. Yeah, that was all. No snarky comment. No silly voice mimicking the actor. Just that one word, yeah, and then the silence again. It hit me then. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't stress. He was still here, still kind, still loving in the way that duty demands, but the version of him that flirted with life, that made me feel young and alive, was gone. And I was the one who buried him. I lay awake that night staring at the ceiling, wanting to reach over, to whisper that I didn't mean it, that I didn't want him to stop being who he was. But I didn't say anything. Because how do you admit that you asked for something and now hate the result? So I turned to my side and let the silence fill the room where laughter used to live. The days began to blur. Work, dinner, a few words exchanged before bed. Eli wasn't cold, exactly, he was calm, controlled, predictable. He didn't tease me when I burned dinner. He didn't pull me close just because. He didn't whisper stupid things in my ear while we were out shopping. He smiled when he was supposed to. He said, "I love you," when I said it first. And for a while, I convinced myself that this was what being an adult couple was: quieter, steadier, more mature. We weren't kids anymore. This was real life. But it didn't feel like love anymore. It felt like maintenance. One night, we were driving home after seeing Friends. Everyone had been laughing, talking about old memories, teasing their partners, sharing inside jokes. Eli had laughed too, genuinely, freely, and for a second, I saw a flicker of who he used to be. That spark that used to live in his eyes. But as soon as we got in the car, it was gone again. The silence pressed down between us. I turned to him, desperate to break it. "You've been quiet lately," I said, pretending it was casual. He kept his eyes on the road. "Just tired." "You used to joke more," I pushed, hoping for even a small reaction. "Guess I grew up," he said softly, without looking at me. The words hit like a punch. I wanted to tell him I didn't mean it back then, that grow up wasn't supposed to mean stop being you. But I didn't. My pride got in the way, like it always does. Instead, I folded my arms and stared out the window, the streetlights flashing across my reflection, a stranger staring back. When we got home, he kissed my forehead, said goodnight, and went straight to bed. And I stood in the kitchen for a long time, trying to remember the last time we'd laughed until we couldn't breathe. The last time he'd made me blush. The last time I'd felt like we were us. It felt like the universe was mocking me, giving me exactly what I'd asked for. A man who had grown up. A man who had learned restraint, composure, emotional discipline. But I hadn't realized that meant he'd also learned how to live without needing to reach for me. I missed his immaturity. I missed the boy who used to tease me until I laughed so hard I couldn't breathe. And the worst part? I couldn't even ask for him back. Because I was the one who told him to leave. It's strange how silence can start to feel like a third person in the relationship. It sits between you, eats dinner with you, lies in bed between your bodies, and somehow makes the air heavier. Weeks passed like that. We still talked about work, bills, plans, groceries, but never about us. Never about how the warmth between us had turned into something polite and distant. One morning, while he was getting ready for work, I stood by the door just watching him. He looked good, really good, hair still damp from the shower, shirt crisp, tie perfectly straight. He'd gotten more serious, more composed. But I realized with a painful jolt that he didn't check his reflection to see if I was looking anymore. He didn't need my gaze like he used to. When he caught me staring, he smiled faintly, the kind of smile you give a coworker. "Something wrong?" he asked. "No," I said quickly. "You just look nice." He nodded. "Thanks." That was it. No grin. No teasing reply like, "Trying to flirt with me now?" Just, "Thanks." I think that was the first time it really hit me, that I'd broken something I didn't know how to fix. So I started trying. Little things at first, sending him a meme, touching his hand at dinner, cracking dumb jokes like he used to. Sometimes he'd smile, even laugh softly. But it always ended there. He never joined in, never pushed the moment further. It felt like trying to start a fire with wet wood. One night, I decided to go all in. I lit candles, cooked his favorite meal, wore the dress he used to say made him forget his name. When he came home, he looked surprised, and for a moment, I thought maybe this was it. Maybe I'd see that spark again. He smiled, kissed my cheek, said, "This looks great." And then he sat down and ate quietly. I laughed a little too loud during dinner, trying to pull him back to me. But he was different now, gentler, measured, distant in a way that made me ache. Later that night, I leaned against him on the couch, heart pounding like I was the one chasing him now. "Eli," I said softly, "do you ever miss how we used to be?" He hesitated, then said, "Sometimes. But I think this is better. Feels more grown." I wanted to scream, because all I heard was, "Feels more empty." But I smiled instead. "Yeah," I whispered. "I guess you're right." He fell asleep before me that night, his breathing steady, peaceful. I watched him for a long time, my fingers hovering near his hair, wanting to touch him, to wake him up and tell him I missed him, that I didn't want grown. I wanted us. But I didn't. Because the truth was, I didn't know if he'd even believe me anymore. Some big fight or dramatic scene. It happened on a Tuesday. Just an ordinary, quiet evening that turned into something that still replays in my mind like a bruise that never fades. He was working late again, laptop open, glasses low on his nose, the soft glow of the screen painting his face in blue. I sat across from him at the table, pretending to scroll on my phone, but I wasn't really reading anything. I was just staring at him, trying to find a trace of the man I used to know in the curve of his jaw, in the faint lines around his mouth. Finally, I said, "Do you ever get tired of being serious all the time?" He looked up confused. "What do you mean?" "You don't flirt anymore," I said, voice smaller than I wanted it to be. "You don't joke. You don't even tease me. You used to be so." He cut me off gently. "You told me to stop." The words were calm. Not angry, not defensive. Just a fact. And it broke me more than if he'd yelled. "I didn't mean it like that," I whispered. I was mad. I was. He leaned back in his chair, arms folded loosely, eyes soft but unreadable. "You said I wasn't acting my age. That I should grow up." So I did. I blinked fast, trying to stop my throat from closing up. "Yeah, but not like this, Eli. You used to make me feel alive." He smiled faintly. "You said I made you feel embarrassed." "That's not what I meant," I snapped, but even to my own ears, it sounded desperate. He closed his laptop slowly, set it aside, and met my gaze, really met it. There was no anger there. Just something quieter. Something like acceptance. "You wanted a man who didn't act like a kid. Who didn't say stupid things or make scenes in public. I tried to be that for you." He paused, his voice steady. "But I think the version of me you loved can't exist in the version of me you asked for." It was so calm, so logical, and so final. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. The words tangled in my throat. Because he was right. I thought maturity meant stillness. Control. But what I'd really wanted was balance, not the death of joy. And I'd killed it myself. He stood up, kissed the top of my head like someone saying goodbye without saying it out loud, and walked into the bedroom. I sat there long after he was gone, staring at the candlelight flickering in the corner, thinking about how quiet love sounds when it's dying. It's been almost a year since that night. We're still together, technically. We live in the same apartment, share the same bed, eat at the same table. But sometimes it feels like we're just two ghosts haunting the memory of a love that used to exist here. Eli still kisses me goodbye before work. Still texts me when he gets home safe. Still remembers to buy my favorite snacks. He's good to me, almost painfully good. But it's all duty now. Routine. His touches are soft but empty. His words careful. His eyes, calm in a way that feels like distance dressed as peace. And me? I've become quieter too. When you live in the shadow of something you destroyed, you learn to stop making noise. Sometimes I'll catch him humming to himself in the morning, just a faint tune while he makes coffee, and for a second, I hear the boy he used to be. The one who used to sing off-key just to make me laugh. But as soon as he notices me, the humming stops. Like even his joy feels like something he needs to hide now. I used to think the worst kind of heartbreak came from losing someone. Now I know it's worse when they stay, when they're right there, breathing beside you, but the version of them you loved is long gone. I wonder sometimes if he resents me. He never says it, but maybe he doesn't have to. Maybe the silence is his resentment, quiet, patient, endless. And still, I don't apologize. Not because I don't want to, God knows I rehearse the words every night. But because I know they wouldn't matter now. You can't apologize for changing the weather after the storm's already passed. The truth is, I told him to grow up because I thought love was supposed to look more polished. More stable. More adult. But love isn't always tidy. It's loud, stupid, impulsive. It's laughter in grocery stores and stolen kisses at red lights. And I traded all of that for silence. Now, when he wraps an arm around me in his sleep, I freeze for a second, not wanting to move, afraid that if I do, the warmth might fade again. I whisper things I never said when he's asleep, hoping maybe somewhere inside, The old him can still hear me. But he never stirs. Sometimes I think about that night, the night I told him to grow up, and I wish I'd just let him make that stupid joke. I wish I'd laughed, rolled my eyes, and pulled him close instead of pushing him away. Because now I understand what growing up really means. It's learning that love doesn't die in explosions. It dies quietly, in sighs and silences and words you can't take back. And the worst part? He did grow up. Just like I asked. And now I'm the only one who misses the boy he used to be.